welcome to the online teaching week 6 recap. So at the end of last week I was feeling, I think, better about certain things, like I was starting to get on the right track or that things would be better. I'd also finally just started to feel like maybe things were starting to become a little bit more routine and like I'd finally figured out what worked best for me, which is by and large getting up early and getting work done before my son wakes up. So of course, because I started to feel good about how things were going, something had to change. And actually the change occurred last week. I didn't really feel the effect of it until this week. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, my son goes to my mom's for the day because she is his caretaker while my husband and I are working normally. And we didn't want him to fall completely out of a routine because I really was holding on to the hope that we would be going back to school at some point, and we didn't want him to be totally thrown off. More than anything though, it's really just because my mom loves being a grandma and it's her favorite thing ever, so we wanted to keep bringing him there to see her regularly. At this point I don't remember if he was there last Tuesday or not, but my father is an essential worker and lives with my mom, obviously. Maybe not obviously, but he does. And he came into contact with people that he works with that has coronavirus, so we're staying away from there for the 2 weeks, which are almost up, and so far so good. So fingers crossed, everything's fine. And I think Russell will be going back there next week like normal, but having him home has been different because when he was going there, Tuesday and Thursday were by far the days that I got the most done because I was able to focus and concentrate. And when he's here, which was Monday, Wednesday, Friday previously, it was a lot harder to get things done. And so this past week, he was here all week. So generally speaking, Russell is very well behaved. He's really good. He will just entertain himself. He will take out his own toys. He will play. And he doesn't need a ton of interaction from us, although he does come up to us and he wants us to play with him from time to time. But we do get like a decent chunk of time where he's entertaining himself. I'm afraid I'm gonna jinx it, but I just want to brag on him a little bit more. If he is quiet and we don't see him, that's usually when you're like, oh my gosh, something horrible is happening. We find him either sitting down looking at a book or standing in front of a window looking outside. So fingers crossed that doesn't change because it's precious. But even though he's that good, my husband and I basically have to trade off time on who is managing Russell and who is working. Because even if I'm trying to work while watching Russell at the same time, I can't fully focus on my work because I have to make sure he's okay. So that was a slight complication this week, but honestly, it really wasn't that bad. At the beginning of the week, I was expecting it to really be a hindrance, but it's been fine. I think I shared a lot about this week on my Insta stories, so if you follow me on Instagram and you watch those, some of what I'm about to say is kind of a repeat. But at the beginning of the week, I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Normally this time of year, if we're in the classroom, we're starting to shift gears toward review. And when it comes to review, it's a lot less work as far as planning is concerned because I'm using questions that are already made and already created. And for review, we just keep things pretty simple. So usually by the time we get to this stage of the year, I feel like an enormous weight is lifted off of my shoulders. And I realize that seeing things happening now. I'm getting to the point where I'm finishing new content in my courses and we're going to start review. So here's what that's going to look like. This week for calculus, I planned my last lesson. So going into this week, Monday and Wednesday, we have our last 2 lessons. And for calculus, I've been finding videos for students to watch and then assigning them work from the textbook. And it takes a lot more work for me to plan calculus because I first need to teach myself these things before I can feel confident choosing questions to assign to students. I type up notes for them and annotate them. So it's quite a few steps in the process. And this has prevented me from batching the way that I like to do my batch lesson planning because I really need to see a full lesson through in calculus for that reason. So next week when I start planning for calculus, we are starting review for their final. They still have a final because it's a college course, and in the college they went through with a final like normal, so we kind of have to also. When I say like normal, I don't mean that they like went to school to take a final. They actually didn't tell us what they did. They just said, however you want to do it, here's the final. So the plan to review with calculus is that I'm going to take different sections of the final, give them similar questions to practice with. I'm going to send them essentially like a list of questions, like in PDF format, so that they can do their work on a separate piece of paper, which has been working so far in that class. And then I'm going to send them a page with the answers, like everything worked out, so that they can look their work over and compare it with mine. For their final, I'm going to actually take the final and kind of give it to them the same way. I'm going to break it down into parts, give them one part at a time. Actually, I'll amend that. I'm going to give them everything at once, but make different parts of it due at different times. Because I have students that will want to get the whole thing done in one shot, and then I will have students that will need to break it down into sections because they have other classes and they're kind of overwhelmed. I think the big difference there is the seniors versus the juniors. So I'm going to give them parts of the final and just have them take pictures of their work and send it to me. I feel like that's the best I can do. I don't know that I could do it any other way. The only thing that I'm waiting on as a determining factor is what day is it that we're done with classes. I don't really know. Last I heard, we were waiting for guidance from state ed about what we should do, and once we have that information, we'll be able to have a decision ready. But that's kind of the only thing that I'm waiting on. Calculus, I feel like we're good. When it comes to my geometry classes, this is kind of hard to explain, but I have 3 actual different classes of geometry. 2 of them are, let's say, advanced, and 1 is not. So it's kind of like having 2 separate geometry courses. I mean, they are 2 separate geometry courses. So in the one course that's advanced, we do everything. So I had to plan 2 lessons for them for this coming week. And then my other geometry class, they have been up until now behind the advanced class, and we're in our circles unit, so they are doing like the highlights from the unit instead of everything. And I had lessons that I've been able to recycle from my advanced geometry class and make a couple of like tweaks for my other class. So they have 1 lesson coming up on Monday that's recycled from my advanced geometry, and then on Wednesday they have 1 lesson that I didn't get to in the advanced geometry class yet. So I had to do 3 lessons total for all of geometry, but that actually put me ahead. So when I start looking at the following week, my advanced geometry class is already planned for. I'm just going to reuse what I'm giving to the other class, and that's good. So it's a little bit less work on me. And then we start reviewing in those classes. So we are reviewing volume, similar triangles, and right triangles, because those are topics that will come up again in future math classes or in real life. Anyway, I feel like the highlight of this week was that I was finally able to start batch lesson planning, and then I looked back and I'm like, I kind of was for a while now, but I just didn't see it because things are just not the same as they would be if I were still teaching in the classroom. So typically with batch lesson planning, I'm able to kind of work on the same type of thing for all my different classes. So one day I would do all the notes from all of my classes, and then the next day I would do all of the activities for my classes or something along those lines. And because of calculus being new to me, and just the fact that I wasn't using the same tools and resources to teach calculus online as I was for geometry, it was hard for me to batch. So like I said, for calculus, I would go through and plan an entire lesson in one sitting and then go and plan another entire lesson in another sitting. So I did that for calculus, and I would do that in the mornings to get it out of the way because it took so much of my concentration. So for my geometry classes, I was actually able to implement batching. So I was able to take care of the notes, and that was Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, I did all of the videos, including filming and editing, and I think I even uploaded that same day too. And then on Thursday and Friday, I worked on my activities for my geometry classes. Batching in that way made me a lot more determined to finish a task before the end of the day, because I didn't want to have to carry that over into the next day and then kind of like fall behind in a way. So a lot of this took extra time on my part. I really like to finish my day at 3 o'clock and then like close the computer, and I mean, I can go for a walk outside now because it's finally nice. But I've been getting on my elliptical in my basement and just kind of detoxing from school. That's a really strong word. I'm gonna go with it though. So I have not been able to do that this week. I've been going until about 4 p.m. or possibly even later. But honestly, I feel like it paid off because cue the confetti. For the first time since we started online teaching, I do not have to do any work over the weekend. I have my whole weekend to myself. I don't have to plan, I don't have to schedule assignments, none of it. I'm so excited. It only took 6 weeks to get here. But ultimately, I'm very hopeful that this trend continues for the rest of online learning because we are at the light at the end of the tunnel. We are going to be doing review. And then what I totally forgot to mention is that when I am reviewing in geometry, these are all topics we've done before, so I'm not creating notes for them. I'm not making video lessons on them. I'm just going to create activities for students to practice and engage with, and I'm going to give them supplemental resources. So if I can find a video online to send them, I'm doing that. And if I have cheat sheets that I made for geometry, I'm going to send those to my students to use. Overall, I feel good and energetic and so excited to start this weekend. So I'm going to do that now. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.